Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be working on this PlayStation 5 which I've got in front of me, which has been sent in by a customer for repair. And the issue with this console is that it's got no display after a HDMI replacement. So this is an issue that I come across quite a lot, and to be honest with you, normally it's fairly simple. Normally it's something like a pin which isn't soldered correctly, and because someone's done it without a microscope, they can't see that one of the pins are not connected. And other cases, it can be something like a faulty diode or a faulty capacitor, or even something like the HDMI encoder. So like I said, I've seen this quite a lot and it's usually quite easy. Hopefully this one's going to be simple, not only because it saves me time, but it also saves the customer money as well. So we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can get it working. But if you are new to the channel, my name is Hakko. I'm an electronics technician. I mainly work on games consoles, but I do work on other stuff too. So if you do need to organise a repair, there's a website link in the video description. You can book it in with me and you can arrange a repair, send it over, and I'll do my best to help. Also, if you do need parts and supplies for game console repairs, be sure to check out the website consolefix.shop, where I sell most parts that you'll need. If I don't have it on the store, you can always get in touch and I'll do my best to assist you with sourcing the parts that you need. So with that being said, let's get into today's repair. You probably don't give a damn about what I've got to say, but just hear me out for a minute, alright? We all know that those sweaty little douchebags with cheesy fingers, living in the mom's basement, drinking Red Bull and simping over TikTok losers are gonna break the console. And you and I both know that you're too cheap to buy off eBay, you're too impatient to wait for AliExpress, and you're just about smart enough to avoid Amazon completely. You can admit it, because I'm exactly the same. That's why I started my online store, consolefix.shop. I'll sell every part you'll need to fix the Xbox One, Series S, Series X, PS4, PS5 and Nintendo Switch consoles. So why not give me the money instead of some random dude on eBay? At least if I have it, you know it's not going to waste on some stupid thing like promoted eBay listings or food for the kids or something. If you give me your money instead, I'll promise I'll use it on useful things, like buying views on TikTok. So before you decide to go to one of the more popular sites and line the pockets of some fat cat loser, take a look at my online store. Check out the link in the video description or the top pinned comment and get 10% off any order over £25 during checkout. Alright, now you can go back to watching this douchebag on YouTube trying to fix something.
You can't say stuff like that in an advert, dude.
You're not my dad, dude. Don't tell me what to do.
That's what you think, Phil.
So this is how I received this console with no front case and no back case on it. So it's come exactly like this. So, well, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference to me. It just means that there's more risk of damage to, for example, the disk drive. But whenever I send it back, I do always make sure I put enough packaging and things like that anyway. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But what I'm going to do first of all is what I do with every single console that I receive, and that is to test it first and verify the issue. So I need to see the issue firsthand and not just take it on face value, because it could just be a case where the customer's HDMI cable, for example, is faulty, and I don't want to be chasing an issue that's not there. So, well, there's that, and plus I need to protect myself and make sure it actually turns on as well. And I always like to get that on video, just to make sure and cover my own back. So this is turning on. We've got a blue light. Let's just see what actually happens. Hopefully it's not a blue light of death. That wouldn't be fun. Not a lung pulsing blue light anyway. But no, there we go. So that is actually turning on and it's going to a white light. That means that it's actually booting. So let's plug it into the television and we'll see what happens. There we go. So that's plugged in, and I mean, that feels kind of loose anyway, to be quite honest with you, but never mind. Alright, so let's fire up the TV and we'll see what happens. Okay, so it hasn't picked up the PlayStation 5 on the TV automatically. That's a little bit strange. It's coming up PlayStation 5, but it's coming up on source 2. And that's not normal because it's not plugged into there. It's plugged into HDMI 1, so that's quite interesting. Okay, so it's not picking up there. And it's actually picking up there. I don't know if you saw that message on the screen there where it says it's detected a HDMI device, but it did actually pick up. But like I said, my HDMI, the one that I'm using right now, is actually connected to HDMI 1. So yeah, that's kind of strange. let's just unplug it and plug it back in. And nope, it's not picking up and detecting. So let's press 0 for 3 seconds. Okay, and it's actually reset now. It's not coming up PlayStation 5 on HDMI input 2. Let's see what happens now. I'm just unplugging it and plugging it back in. I'm going to wiggle the cable as well. I'm actually looking through my monitor which I've got in front of me, which obviously I'm seeing what you're seeing right now, which means I can see the TV. And yep, nope, that's not doing anything. Okay, so the next thing I'll do then is I will use a little bit of contact cleaner. This is non-conductive. So I forgot I had this until literally a few days ago. I'm going to use some contact cleaner. I'm just going to, number one, spray some inside my HDMI cable. And number two, I'm going to spray some inside the port itself. And the reason for that is because when you change a HDMI port, you use what's called flux. So flux basically helps the solder to flow, prevents oxidation and all of that stuff. And basically, it can make its way into the port. So we want to make sure that the port is fully cleaned. I'm just going to plug that in. And back on the TV, we still get absolutely nothing. So I'll just double check by switching from HDMI 1 to HDMI 2. So it's coming up PlayStation 5 again now. That is really, really weird, because it's definitely not on HDMI 2. So let me just show you an example quickly. If I take my microscope here, when I untangle the wires, if I take my microscope and I take the TV cable, if it'll reach, there we go, I've got to stretch it a little bit, but if I plug that into my TV, you know, the microscope itself, and then just power it on, bear with me. So I've got that powered on. Let's just double check and make sure it actually shows up. Yeah, there we go. So if you look, I'm on HDMI 1 there, and it's coming up with my microscope. So it's definitely not on HDMI 2. But if I plug it back into the PlayStation, so I'll just unplug that from there, and there you go, PlayStation 5. Work that one out. I have actually come across that a few times, to be honest with you, where it doesn't seem to recognise properly on the TV, and a lot of the time it's because one of the pins are not connected properly. So I think it's usually like pin 16. So yeah, this might be a simple one, but either way, to make a video because it's quite interesting. So yeah, let's get this thing apart and we'll see what we can do about getting it working, shall we? While I'm unscrewing this, I do have a Patreon, so if you do want to buy me a cup of coffee, if you want to give me some support, check me out at patreon.com/thecoder. I'll leave a link in the description. But if you want to support me on there, you're more than welcome to. And I am going to start releasing all videos early to Patreon. They will get released to, obviously, you know, everyone, but I'm going to start releasing them all early on Patreon, or at least 1 or 2 a week, you know, early releases. So I do really appreciate the support, and thank you to all of my supporters. Alright, so I'm just getting the heatsink off on this, and I can already see that it's not a good job in terms of the HDMI port. I'll show you why in just a second. But basically, the solder on there is just not good. And I don't mean to, you know, make fun of anyone or anything like that. That's not my intention. I'm just making observations, you know, I'm just pointing out what I see and what I find. The solder job on this is not good, and I'm expecting the solder on the pins to be just as, if not worse, just as bad, if not worse, than the, you know, the ground anchors. I'm trying to get this out, but it looks like someone has forced it in. There we go. It seems okay. There we go. All right. Yeah, so obviously I don't mean to make fun of anyone, but if it is a repair shop that's done it, it's obviously unacceptable. You know, don't offer... Oh, wow. Don't offer repairs if you can't do it. Let's just take a look and see what we're dealing with here. So look at this. So first of all, they have not done anything with the liquid metal. That would have overheated within 5 minutes of running. It's as simple as that. It would not have survived. You know, the liquid metal hasn't been not so much replaced, but moved back into place. So liquid metal realistically should last quite a long time. And what you can do is you can take a cotton swab and some isopropyl alcohol and just basically move it back into the middle of the APU on the die. You know, move it all back, get rid of the oxidation, and it's fine. This hasn't been done here. This would have overheated within a few minutes, I'll guarantee you. So if you just take a look here, we've got a massive dry spot and all of the liquid metal is grouped down to the one side. Because despite what people say, putting your console vertically, it's not good for your console, ladies and gents. Despite what people say, I don't care what people say. It's not good for your console. Gravity is a thing. It does exist. We do not live on a flat earth, alright? And yeah, gravity and liquid don't go well, do they? But yeah, you can see there as well on the heatsink side of it as well. Massive dry spot. It's not good. Like, you can't leave a console like that when you open it up. It probably would have been fine, you know, for a while after. In fact, no, I'm going to say it probably was overheating because it's clogged up with dust as well. It might have been okay, but chances are it was probably getting pretty toasty. But yeah, let's have a look at this. So when I first took the top off this, you know, the metal plate, the top heatsink, I could see straight away that the solder joints on here are not good at all. Like, check that out. Like, those solder joints, I'll show you that under the microscope, but they're not good. So yeah, I don't know what to expect when I actually look at that there. But let's have a look. And yeah, as I expected, that is not good. That's pretty rough, and it looks like we've probably got some pins which are not connected there. I will check those over. You know, I'll just give them a little mull over with the tweezers. But I can pretty much guarantee that some of these pins are not going to be connected. And they've used a corrosive flux. So you see all this gunk around by pin 17. So that's the third one from the right. Yeah, that's corrosion about to take place right there. And yeah, not connected, not connected. Yeah, this is just literally not connected at all. And to be honest with you, that would have eaten away at the solder anyway. And in fact, it already has started to, you know, eat away at the solder. Can you see the oxidation on that pin there? It don't look good, does it? Like, that's not good at all. Someone's used a acidic flux on this, and they also haven't pushed the HDMI port down far enough to actually make a contact with the board. So the port's just not soldered. In fact, I'm really shocked as to the fact that we got anything connected at all. I mean, I guess yeah, so some of the data pins, it looks like are connected, but they are breaking away as soon as I touch them. Yeah, unless it's just making enough contact to actually recognise as a PlayStation 5, but that's really weird. But it doesn't matter, we'll fix it, we'll get it sorted. So I've got the board over the edge of the table here, and what I want to do is I want to remove this port from underneath the board. So on the other side of the board, I want to remove the port, so that's where I'm going to apply my heat. And the reason for that is because the HDMI chip is pretty sensitive to heat. It's not incredibly sensitive, but it's best not to put any direct heat on it if you can help it. So I always remove and reinstall the port through the bottom of the board. So basically just hover my hot air underneath, just here, and basically go from there and do it from that way. So I'm going to set my hot air up at 480 degrees Celsius. And the reason I'm going so high is because it just saves time. It's really not going to take much to actually get this port off, but there's nothing sensitive on the other side, so why not just go for, you know, the hottest that I can possibly go for. I mean, there is always a risk of popcorn in the board, but these boards are incredibly thick and they do give you a lot of leeway when it comes to the heat, so I'm not worried, really. So I'm just going to heat up from underneath. I've got no nozzle on my hot air station. I'm using the Atten ST862D, by the way. And yeah, there you go. So really didn't take long at all to remove that port, did it? So what I'll do now before I do anything else is just clean this up with some isopropyl alcohol. Just clean as you go. It's going to help out with getting a better job, or doing a better job rather. So a bit of isopropyl alcohol on a brush and just basically give it a good scrub. Just clean it up nicely. And there you go. So I'm going to use some non-acidic flux here. The flux that I use is Kingbo RMA 218. You can buy this from my online store. I am very low on stock though. I'm waiting for a new order to come. But Kingbo RMA 218, I mean, people use stuff like Amtech and Chip Quick and all of that sort of stuff. Honestly, I think it's overrated for the price of it, to be honest with you. You know, Kingbo does just as good of a job and it's way cheaper. Way cheaper. You know, you can pay £15 for a tube of Amtech, or you can pay £5 for a tube of Kingbo. So I'm just going to apply some leaded solder. And it looks like there was lead-free solder on this before. I never understand why people use lead-free solder. And I know it's difficult to find and buy. Well, unless you go to my store. But honestly, it's really bad. Like, lead-free solder, it takes so much heat to actually work with it. It's unreal. I'll just change the mixture of the solder there just to lower the melting temperature on it. And then if you look at the difference in the quality of the joints when you're using a decent flux and the right solder. I'm using Kester leaded solder, by the way, 6337. And there we go. So don't worry that we've got some big blobs on the ground legs, you know, the ground holes. When I put the hot air back, or when I apply hot air rather, I swear I know what I'm talking about. When I apply hot air, the solder will basically suck itself back in. So don't worry too much about that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just heat up from underneath again, and I'm going to install a brand new port. So brand spanking new. What you'll see in a minute is this solder will suck through. So I'm just starting to get that melt there. There we go, and beautiful. So now I'm going to keep my airflow moving. Just drop my port there, hold it there, move my heat away. And let go. Theoretically, that should be soldered. Let's have a look. I say theoretically because it's not foolproof, and nope, I could do with knocking that a bit more. It doesn't always go exactly to plan, but what you can do is just heat it back up again. I'm going to try and keep my airflow moving a little bit. Press down on it. And there we go. So that's settled. So while I've got the microscope over the edge of the table, make sure I haven't melted it. And I haven't. That's good. It looks absolutely beautiful. And yeah, There we go. So that's nicely aligned now. Actually, I mean, it's very slightly misaligned, to be honest, but it's absolutely fine. It's like a millimetre out. So what I'll do now is just give this a check and just test each pin individually. So I'm just making sure that the pins are actually soldered. If they're not, then I can go back and just tap them with the soldering iron, but if not, then I can just call it good. Don't want to put too much pressure on them. You know, don't want to break them off. But you do want to make sure that it's good. And yeah, those are absolutely perfect. Every single one is soldered. So I could go back and touch those pins up with the soldering iron, but it's not really worth doing that. It's not worth messing around with it and risk melting the port or anything like that, because they're all soldered. They have more than enough solder on them. They're all making a nice solid contact, and there won't be an issue with that port. So I'm not going to go ahead and mess with it. If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? One thing I will do, however, is just resolder the ground legs from the other side, and the reason for that is just because I did notice there was a little bit too much solder on them as I was moving the board back. So once I've cleaned this, I'll go ahead and do that. I will clean inside the port as well, because flux always works its way in. And I'll also use some contact cleaner on this, just because, well, I've got contact cleaner, so why not use it, right? It's probably going to work better for flux than isopropyl alcohol is, to be honest. I'll just use a bit of contact cleaner. There we go. Beautiful. So flipping the board around, let's actually have a look how good that contact cleaner actually is. I'll just spray a little bit on there. And it's not cheap, by the way, so I shouldn't really be wasting it, should I? It's actually not bad. Alright, so that's that. So I'm going to add some more flux now, and then I'm just going to neaten these joints up. Not absolutely necessary, but I like to neaten them up if I can, just because I like to leave a good job. Oh wow, can you see all of that crappy solder that's made its way through now? I've actually got to use hot air on that because of that. Because my soldering iron just can't hack it. I could turn my soldering iron up, I've got it set at 400 degrees Celsius, that is, but just use a bit of hot air with it, it's probably easier. Just clean my iron tip. And you can see that with every pass with the iron, I'm removing a little bit of solder. Don't want to put the hot air there for too long, I don't want to melt the port. Okay, it's starting to look a little bit better, it's starting to clean itself up. So the issue here is that someone's scratched away at the conformal coating that's on the board, which means the solder's making its way to the copper pad underneath it, and we obviously don't want that. That's pretty much cleaning up. I'm happy at that. That's a lot better than it was. Alright, so while the board's still warm, I'm just going to clean up. I'm just going to get rid of as much of that flux that's still on the board as I possibly can. And I'm also going to clean here as well, because I'm assuming some flux probably made its way down there. And there we go, beautiful. Nice and clean, and a nice tidy job. Alright, there we go. So yeah, let me know in the comments, what's your favourite method for doing HDMI ports? I really do like the drop method. I think it's it gives a more consistent result. You know, sometimes it's a little bit off in terms of the placement, but I think overall it gives a much more consistent result than, you know, using something like, for example, this solder sucker that I've got here, and cleaning out the port, you know, cleaning out the holes, and then, you know, dropping a new port in and soldering it. The problem I find with that a lot of the time is that when you remove the solder from the ground holes, I don't know, it kind of like, it doesn't give as much of a secure port when you put a new port in, because the solder doesn't seem to pass all the way through the board. By the way, I'm now selling these on the store if anyone needs one. They are really good pumps. But yeah, you can do it that way. I only really use these desoldering pumps for removing through hole components on like power supplies and stuff, but they are really powerful solder suckers. They are really, really handy. But yeah, I just prefer to use the drop method when it comes to the HDMI port on consoles, just because, well, like I said, consistency. But yeah, they're available on the store if anyone needs them. They are really useful to have, just I don't use them for this. Okay, that's all I need for testing, so just plug the HDMI in, and that feels so much better, that cable. Feels a million times better, that does. So, just turn that on. I pressed the wrong button, whoops. Let's turn it on the TV, and let's make sure it works. It should do. Come on, PlayStation logo. Come on, work. I said work. $4K. Okay, it's actually acting very strange. Yeah, so it keeps changing the name of it for some reason. I wonder if there's flux in my cable now. Come on, PlayStation. Huh. Yeah, my cable's iffy. Time to replace my cable. Alright, contact cleaner time. Right, not touching it. Hey, there we go. Give it a wiggle. Yeah, okay. So it was my cable the second time. But obviously I put contact cleaner in it earlier, and obviously still didn't get a display. So all that's left for me to do on this one now is just to reassemble it fully, and then I can invoice the customer, get it back to them, and hopefully they'll be happy with the service. It's a nice simple one, just a standard HDMI port. If you're wondering, I charge £60 for a HDMI port on the PlayStation 5, and on the Xbox Series S and Series X on older consoles, I charge £50. So just for full transparency, that's how much I charge, and then obviously the return postage on top of that as well. So if you've got this issue, I can work on it for you and hopefully get yours repaired, but that's how much it'll cost if it's that exact issue. So that's going to be it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you found any value in the video, if you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you do need any HDMI ports, any parts, supplies, tools, whatever, consolefix.shop, you can buy anything you need on there. And if I don't have it, get in touch and I'll see if I can find it for you as well. All of my parts are cheaper than going to eBay. So you will always find them cheaper on my website rather than going to eBay. And shipping is normally a lot faster as well. I normally ship stuff out the same or the next day, depending on what time it's ordered. So if you need parts fast and you're in the UK, you can normally get them the next day. So that's going to be it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Support me on Patreon if you want to buy me a cup of coffee. And I'll see you all in the next video.